Welcome to the Balancer Liquidity Bootstrapping Simulator. I know it can be a little daunting when you first see it, so I thought I'd make this to guide you through it. Really, it can be used for computations on any two-token pool and design gradual weight chain changes for any purpose. Note that I've included some links to Medium articles on the subject, just for context. So the general idea and what the liquidity bootstrapping pool provides is a way to conduct a token sale that's as fair as possible with a low capital requirement. So what do we mean by fair? Fair means the widest distribution possible at a stable cost determined by market price discovery with no pre-mine or pre-sale and less incentive for bots or early buyers to pump and dump. So let's talk about what a liquidity bootstrapping pool is so we can understand what the settings are and how to configure it. So an LBP is a type of balancer smart pool where you can change the weights on a schedule over time. And the reason you want to do that is to maintain a stable or decreasing token price against demand. So in Uniswap, the prices are determined by relative balances alone. In Balancer, they're determined by a combination of balances and weights. So if you're selling tokens, that means people are swapping the other token in the pool, usually a stable coin that we call the reserve currency, for your token. So your token balance is going down and your reserve currency balance is going up. If the weights didn't change, the price of your token would just keep going up. And if it went up higher than market value, then people would turn around and start selling it back and you wouldn't really be distributing your tokens. So reducing the weight of your token compensates for this and maintains the price even as the balance decreases. So you've got two variables changing over time, the weights, which you control, and the balances, which are controlled by the market. Now there are ways to affect the balances through buybacks and issuance and external liquidity, but in the simplest case, the balances only change through people doing swaps on the open market. So the first parameter is the sale duration. To have something to graph, I've arbitrarily created 72 steps. So these are evenly spaced checkpoints during the sale. So for each step, you can see the block height and number of hours elapsed. For the default of 3 days, each step is 1 hour. So if you change it to 30, then you see each step change to 10 hours. Another thing to mention is originally we'd anticipated much longer sales. So the default on the system is actually 2 weeks minimum duration. So if you're going to do a sale shorter than that, make sure you set the minimum duration shorter, maybe 1 day. All right, so this lets you estimate when certain price points will be reached and helps determine the block time parameters you need when you create the pool. So the next important thing, and really the heart of it, is the weight change schedule. That's what you see here, the weights changing over time. So you enter starting weights and ending weights for the two tokens, and they'll change linearly for these between these values over the sale. So you can see this graphically here. And we start out with a high token weight and a low reserve weight, and they flip over time. And the most you can do a completely symmetrical flip, and then you can see them change symmetrically like this. So now what you're entering here are denormalized weights, and the system calculates percentages from those. So valid denorms are between 1 and 49 because the sum has to be less than or equal to 50. And the percentage is just the weight over the total. So when you have 36 and 4, the weight of the token with 4 is just 4 over 40 or 10%. So, and then you can see with these parameters set like this that the weights change smoothly between the starting and ending values. Okay, so now recall that the price is derived from both the weights and the balances. You can control at least the initial price since you create the pool with initial balances and weights. The easiest way to come up with a starting point is using the ad hoc calculator here, where you just give it balances and weights and it calculates the price. So say you want to sell 5 million tokens for around $1. So you type in 5 million here, and Now, in a Uniswap pool where you can't change the weights, they'd be 50-50. So if both weights are the same, that's the same as a 50-50 pool. So you can see that if you wanted to sell 5 million tokens at $1, you'd need $5 million. But with a 98-2 pool on Balancer, which is the most you can do, you do this. All right, now you can see you only need 102,000 to sell 5 million tokens for $1. So much less starting capital. And I originally set this for the perp sale, so I tend to leave it at those values. So their starting price was around $1.60, and the price curve declined steadily to about 63, as you can see here. So what's happening here is at each step, it's using a net sale number. How many tokens are being purchased per step at that step's price, net. So most are being purchased, maybe some are being sold back. This is the net total. So the token balance here goes steadily down, and the reserve balance goes steadily up. And at each point, it calculates a new price from the current balances and weights, which are also changing according to your schedule. So how do we know what this net sale number is here, the sale rate? Well, of course we don't. It's determined by the market. And this is really the trickiest part. You just need to estimate it, and it can be very sensitive. So as a guide, aggregate market forces should keep it from going too crazy. So if you generate a curve that's close to flat, that's a reasonable assumption. So now with certain values, the price might shoot up to $10,000, and the simulator is kind of dumb in that respect. It just assumes people will buy it whatever the price is, but of course no one really would buy in that case. So to understand this behavior, let's say there's no demand and no one bought at all. So we represent this by setting the sale rate to 0. And now we see the token balance doesn't change, and the price just drops like a lead balloon, right down to 8 cents. Now let's say the demand is high. Say there's 2 million a day. Okay, now people are buying the price up faster than the weights are bringing it down, and you can see the price is actually rising. Now, what do you do? If that's the case, if you think that really will be the rate, you can rescue it by lowering the final rates. So if you change this, instead of going down to 3070, if you go down to 8020, now the price is near constant, as you can see. It goes up a little bit near the end. Now, if you completely flip it, going back all the way to 9010, okay, now you can see that the price is going down steadily again to right about the same value it was before, even though you've got a much higher sale rate. So now you can even adjust in the middle. Much more on that later. So, and you can also see the total proceeds and the unsold tokens as outputs here. So you'll find that a flat curve, besides being the most likely outcome, also tends to maximize your proceeds. So those are the basics. Let me show you just one more thing before going into the advanced features. So there's also a swap fee here. And for these pools, you generally want a low fee to encourage trading. And usually you're the only one providing liquidity, and your purpose is to sell tokens, not generate fees. So that all argues for a low fee. However, a low fee also makes you somewhat vulnerable to arbitrage bots. So there's an argument for setting it higher, at least in the early stages of the sale. If you enable that right, the change swap fee right, you can change the swap fee at any time. So anecdotally, 2% seems to be enough to discourage the arb bots, but of course that also might deter traders, so you have to use your judgment there. One option could be to set it high like that for the first hours of the sale, and then make sure the price isn't spiking, and then drop it really low. So more research is required, but you can change it on the interface and see what it does. See that it does affect the price just a little bit. All right. So this sale rate is, of course, an estimate. What if the buyers don't follow your script? So say you're 8 hours in, and demand is actually a lot higher than you thought. So the simulator predicts you should have like a little over 7 million tokens. Let's say you only have 6 million. So you've sold an extra million, and you're 2.5 million in the reserve. So what you can do is you can use these override columns here. So set this for 6 million and 2.5 million to reflect what the price actually is. So now if you look at what this does, you can see that's gonna adjust the price. So now it would be over $2. So, and if you find the sale rate is wrong, you can also override that at the next step, as we'll see next. So one of the features this has is price discovery. So let's say you want a floor of about $1 and you think it's worth maybe $1 or $2, but you're not sure. What you can do is set the initial price significantly higher and let the market discover it. So say you go to a 98.2 maximum pool. With the weights this high in the beginning, the price, and you got the same balances, the price is now $9. So, and you can see that it declines normally. But let's say no one will buy at that price. To simulate that, like as before, we set the sale rate to 0. So now nobody's buying, and you can see the price drops quite quickly in that case. So let's say the market price is about $250. In that case, people should start buying around hour 6. Just to simulate that, what we can do is go to hour 6, and you see we also have this sale rate override. So we can say starting here, people start buying. And let's say they keep buying at that same price or at that same rate for the rest of the sale. So you can see the balance is static and then starts going down. So now, if we look at what this does, you have an initial price discovery and then a static price after that. So let's do another scenario. Let's say demand is super high and the price is going up, or maybe it gets stuck. Like somebody made a huge purchase. You have one day to go and someone spiked the price with a big purchase, and now the weights don't have time to come back down before the sale ends. So now you've effectively lost the last day of your sale and you're going to have a bunch of leftover tokens. So actually, you can reset the schedule at any time. So in the beginning, you called update weights gradually, and you can call it again anytime you want. So say you're 24 hours into the sale and somebody buys, you're right here, and somebody buys 2 million tokens. So you go to hour 24, and now as before we can go into the token override, and let's type in what it actually is now, 2 million and so now you can see what this does. That's going to spike the price. And at the same sale rate, look at the price curve. It's going to go up and you're going to lose, people aren't going to buy. So what can you do? You can call it again with the same time parameters, ending at the same block, but with different end weights. So this is a little tricky to do in the simulator, but you can do it. So let me show you how to do it. So we're at hour 24, and notice that the weights at this point are 28.12. So it's gone down from 90.10 down to 70.30. So that means when we call this again, the starting weight is actually 28.12. So we can set that here. And now say we want to, we have to make them end lower. So let's go to 95.5. Now the problem here is if all you do is this, it's starting at block 0, which is, we're already 24 hours in, so this isn't right. So you're restarting your steps. So the way we can actually do that right in the system here by resetting this back to step 0. So if we start here with step 0 and go from there, that's going to start changing the weights from 2812 down to the endpoints of 238. Now notice we have a jump here. That's because we don't have 72 steps anymore, we only have 48. So you need to go back up here and change the steps. Now the weights will change smoothly. So now you've effectively reset it starting at hour 24, and you're going from 2812 down to a lower value starting with these real values. So now you can see what the price curve does. So now it flattens out and starts to go down. But maybe this isn't quite good enough yet. You've sort of rescued the curve, but not quite. So you actually can go and make the weights even lower. And then look at the curve and see what that does. That's looking better. And then you can even do it to the maximum, 98.2. And then this looks crazy. But now you've got a decent price curve again, and you're back down to almost where you started. So there you go, saved. So this argues for leaving a little bit of wiggle room in the weights initially so you can adjust them if you have to. Now, of course, even if you're at the limit, you can still flatten the curve by shortening the time. You just call it with a sooner end time, and that has the same effect if you can't lower the weights anymore. So there you have it. That is the quick summary of the Balancer Simulator. That's about everything you can do on Excel here. So when you want to use this yourself, please, I've made it read-only because people were stomping on it. So just copy it, and then you have your own copy, and you can edit it however you like. You can also download it to Excel. It's a little better in Excel because you can have multiple axes and do some fancier things with it than Google Sheets allows. But I think this is a great start. So since recording this, I've added some functionality. On the main simulator page, we now have a slippage column. This is the slippage out. So when you're buying a token with the reserve currency, that's what most people are doing. And we see it goes up as the balance and weights go down. It's still pretty good with these big balances. Also, we have the capital from price calculator. So the ad hoc calculator assumes you know the number of tokens and your starting capital, and it calculates the price for you. But some people have a target price and they want to know how much capital they need. So rather than do it on the regular ad hoc through trial and error, this section does the inverse calculation. So you type in a price and it tells you how much capital you need. Just a little easier. And of course, if you type in the same number, it gives you the same result. Next, we have another calculator. The main simulator assumes you're doing update weights gradually, but you can also call update weight directly. So recall the difference. Update weights gradually doesn't do anything right away. It just sets an update schedule, target weights, and a starting and ending time over which to change them. Then people calling poke weights during that block period actually cause the weights to change, and the prices. Right, the prices will change because poke weights does not transfer tokens to affect the balances. So it doesn't cost anything to poke weights other than gas. And whenever you change weights without changing balances, you're changing prices. Whereas update weight does let you set the weights arbitrarily at any time. And note that you can't do that while a gradual update's running though. However, doing so does not affect the price. Otherwise, the controller could manipulate prices. So the only way you can change weights without changing the price is to also change the balances. So calling update weight will transfer tokens to change the balances just enough to compensate for the weight change. Generally, it costs you tokens to increase the weight of something, and you get tokens back if you decrease the weight. And of course, if the pool is taking your collateral tokens, you're getting pool tokens back in exchange, and vice versa. You need to redeem pool tokens to withdraw collateral. So let's look at an example. We have a 2-token 80-20 pool for simplicity, 500 A tokens at 20%, and 1,000 B tokens at 80%. So here you can see the spot prices. A B token costs 2 A tokens. Let's say we want to flip the weights and make it 80-20 in favor of A instead of B. To do that, we have to call update weight twice. The order doesn't generally matter, though you have to be careful that the total never exceeds the max. If it did, you just have to lower one before you raise the other. So we're going to flip the denormalized weights from 416 to 16.4. So starting with token A, let's put in a new weight of 16. So at this point, we now temporarily have a 50-50 pool. Both weights are 16. In order to raise token A from 4 to 16, it costs 1,500 tokens. So it's going to pull 1,500 A tokens from your wallet and mint you back 60 pool tokens. Negative cost means it's minting. So the absolute number depends on how many are minted. It's kind of arbitrary. If you minted 1,000 at the beginning, it would give you 600. Now, to complete the flip, now we want to lower the weight of token B from 16 down to 4. So we do that. And now you see we have an 80-20. The new weights are here. We have an 80-20 pool the other way. And to lower the weight, it's going to redeem your 60 pool shares for 750 B tokens. Now, since we've done a symmetrical operation here, the net pool token change is 0. So to accomplish this change and flip the pool, we've had to add 1,500 A tokens and remove 750 B tokens. So the new balances are 2,000 and 250. And you notice throughout, no matter what we do, the prices never change. So if you find yourself wanting to change the weights of your smart pool and wonder whether you can, this will help you find out. And finally, we have the impermanent loss calculator. You can follow this reference to read about it in great detail. But basically, impermanent loss is the risk you run when providing liquidity. The value of your pool shares should go up over time because of trading fees, but if prices diverge a lot between the time you enter and the time you exit, you can actually lose versus holding. So let's look at an example. We have our friends A and B, an 80-20 pool with prices and balances here at the time you add liquidity. So you deposited 500 A and 1,000 B, and at these prices, it's about $2,500. Now, if you exit a year later, and the prices are just about the same, maybe a little bit different, type in slightly different prices here, then you'll have a little bit of a loss. Now, loss is always going to be 0 or negative. So here you have almost no loss, and hopefully your gains from fees would generate a profit. And of course, you're also earning governance tokens, which should more than wipe out any losses at this level. Okay, put it back. Now, let's say token A here doubles. Now it's a little more significant. Now you have about a 3% loss. And note this was an 80-20 pool. What if it had been a 50-50 pool, like Uniswap? If we make the weights the same, watch what happens to the loss. It goes up. So the loss is more, almost double, 6% or so. And this is an advantage of balancer pools over Uniswap. Unbalanced pools have less impermanent loss. Now, of course, this comes at a cost. You also have higher slippage at extreme balances, whereas Uniswap pools at 50-50 tend to minimize that. So another thing to note is that with a 50-50 pool, it doesn't matter if the price doubles or loses 50%. It's symmetrical. loss is the same no matter which one happens. But really, it's asymmetrical because you've got that product term there. So if you have, it's nonlinear. So if you have an unbalanced pool, now it's no longer symmetric. And it matters which token doubles. So I hope that helps. And if you have any questions, just go to our Discord. The team will be happy to answer your questions. So happy simulating, and I'll talk to you on Discord.